to share with us. Got it. So they're going to share the significance of the research study. First, we have Dan Braunstein. He is the head of business development and operations at NiaMedic. His main focus is to help cannabis companies, products, brands, and other entities leverage NiaMedic's cannabis data and research. He is also a host and producer of the first cannabis podcast for Israeli listeners, named from, the name is From Cali To Kush. We also have Rabbi James Kahn. He is the executive director of Liberty Cannabis Cares, the social impact and corporate responsibility team at Holistic Industries. Holistic Industries is one of the largest multi-state vertically integrated cannabis companies operating in the US. James joined Holistic in 2017, opening the company's first retail dispensary, Liberty Cannabis, in Rockville, Maryland. He has served as the director of community outreach, developing Holistic's corporate responsibility platform. It focuses on 4 central pillars: social equity, by repairing the damage caused by the war on drugs, diversity, cannabis education, and community service. As executive director, James works to integrate the mission of Liberty Cannabis Cares into every aspect of Holistic's business and brands. A passionate cannabis advocate and educator, James got his start in cannabis in 2011 when his family opened Takoma Wellness Center, DC's first medical cannabis dispensary. As an ordained rabbi, James has served in a variety of positions, including senior Jewish educator at the University of Maryland Hillel, director of Chaplaincy at JSSA, Rabbinic Director for DC's Hebrew Free Burial Society, and the Washington Board of Rabbis. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here. Dan, do you want to start and tell us how NiaMedic is involved with this study, and then bring on Rabbi Kahn?
Sure. How can you hear me, by the way?
Sound good?
Great. So first and foremost, thank you for having me tonight. Again, my name is Dan Braunstein. I have essentially 3 different cannabis hats in the industry. I'll tell you in short about the first 2, and then I'll focus on the third one. So as Alicia mentioned, I have my own cannabis podcast aiming at Israeli listeners. Every week I host trailblazers, pioneers from the cannabis space in both Israel and California to talk about cannabis culture, cannabis science, business, entrepreneurship, etc. Other than that, I have my own business, my cannabis business named Grassfed. It's a leading hospitality company providing cannabis services to different types of private events in California. And last but not least, I'm the head of business development and operations at NiaMedic. And NiaMedic is an Israeli-American CRO clinical research organization focused on medical cannabis and psychedelic research. One of our main missions is to help cannabis companies to develop evidence-based cannabis and psychedelic products, and to ensure both efficacy and safety. In addition, NiaMedic has provided healthcare services for over 10,000 patients and seniors in Israel and California using medical cannabis as well as conventional medicine. So as you probably know, I'm here today to tell you about our recent clinical trial with the University of Irvine and how you and your community members could potentially be a part of it, or at least help our recruitment efforts. So we recently started to conduct a clinical research in a collaboration with UC Irvine, as well as Soroka Institute in Israel, which, by the way, is the second largest hospital in the Middle East. The main objective of this study is to observe the safety and response of Cannaseutica products used for treatment of chronic pain. And some other relevant information for the trial, it is an observational study. Basically, the study will enroll 107 adults who purchased or will purchase medical cannabis under their own discretion with chronic pain, who failed to respond to at least to prior pain medications or otherwise alternatives. We are looking actively for individuals 21 and up who suffer from chronic pain, obviously, and who tried at least 2 treatments. Other than that, I wanna point a current trend which is related to this conversation in many ways, and also symbolizes the, I would say, evolution of cannabis, the way I see it, and also explains the importance of evidence-based cannabis medicine. So first, when you look at almost any cannabis market, the movement has always started with a medical agenda, if you think of it, also here in California. And once the market matured enough, it became also an adult use market. And you can see it happening in also states in the US currently. What has happened in those markets is that the adult use market has swallowed, if you will, the medical market. On one hand, offering, I would say, more products for targeted condition, mainly sleep, that you can see on today's dispensaries. But on the other hand, is lacking consistency, accuracy, or otherwise formulations that are actually based on data and research. So don't get me wrong, cannabis has helped humans medically for thousands of years. And while we know that it is effective for various medical interactions or indications, we still don't know exactly how it is working and what are the essential cannabinoids, flavonoids, terpenoids that help us feel better. So we're still looking for those answers. So with that being said, I just read in a newspaper recently that the feds are considering approving cannabis consumption in and prescription in hospitals. This move could be, I think, a game changer. I think it's huge and would give a big advantage to companies and brands who have evidence-based products, which is something that I know doctors are always, like to repeat, that is lacking in our space. Or otherwise, we need more relevant data that can help medical staff get better and safer decisions. So today, still, there aren't many doctors nor nurses, unfortunately, that know the endocannabinoid system and consider it when treating their patients, which is something that we're trying to change, obviously. Once cannabis will be available in hospitals, we can only imagine the impact that we will see more cannabis companies take this route of evidence-based medicine. So this is me and my take on medical cannabis, and I'm happy to move the mic to Rabbi James Kahn.
Let me unmute myself. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good. All right. Thank you so much for inviting us. It's really it's a little late here in Maryland, but so excuse me if I'm a little sleepy, but I'm excited. I'm excited, sleepy. So let me introduce myself for a moment and my background. So I'm a clergy member. I'm working in cannabis. There's not a lot of us, but there's more than you'd expect. Prior to I've been actually working with clergy and cannabis for almost a decade now. I worked to do organizing work with clergy, basically organizing clergy around the country to focus on issues, progressive issues like treatment versus incarceration and other progressive drug policies like the end of mandatory minimum sentences. For me, access to cannabis has always been an issue of what in Jews call tikkun olam, or the work of healing the world. And so I believe clergy should be talking about it from the pulpit, right? Inspiring their communities to fight for cannabis legalization and for social equity within the industry. And most importantly, I think clergy have a superpower of sorts, not a superpower that impresses my children, but the power to normalize. The the more, you know, the more pulpits, whether they're Muslims, Christian, Jews, Baha'is, the more clergy we have talking about cannabis, the more people feel like it's okay to use it. In fact, at the very beginning of my work running a dispensary, I once had a 90-something-year-old lady drive with her sister to our dispensary. It was a 2-hour drive for them in Maryland. And she came because she'd been suffering incredible pain. She said she hadn't sat in a car for more than 10 minutes for years because of her pain. But she'd been praying to God, asking, is it okay if I use this cannabis? And she then heard that there was a rabbi who sold cannabis, and for her, that was God answering her prayer. You know, was it my theology? No, but I was happy that she felt like this gave her permission. And anyone who knows, you know, and I know you guys being connected to NORML know very well the realities around how drug laws are, how they tend to be incarcerate Black and Brown Americans at a rate 4 times greater than white Americans. You know, this is an issue of social justice, and so clergy should be speaking about it. To me, and in my rabbinate, in growing access to cannabis has been a moral and ethical imperative. And so part of that is expanding evidence-based medicine around cannabis, specifically around cannabis efficacy, dose, and applications. We all know that doctors in the West strive to practice evidence-based medicine. And we know that many clinicians you know, have been impacted by public opinion in more than 70 years of a pretty darn successful war on drugs. And so, you know, for a lot of, despite the fact that there is a lot of, there's been a lot of research done on cannabis. In fact, if you search PubMed, the online US National Library of Medicine at NIH, and you put in the criteria of cannabis or cannabinoids, you're going to get over 40,000 citations of different bioscientific journals and books dating back to 1846. And that number is actually doubling. Every year, 3,000 new papers are published, and it actually doubles every 7 years. But most of these papers are relatively trivial. They're dated, they're ill-informed. Many are clickbait. You know, two good examples are, you know, high time for medical marijuana, or marijuana, all smoke and mirrors, right? But there are also many thousands of serious scientific papers, and some providing pretty profound insights about how cannabis impacts the body and the endocannabinoid system, and really irrefutable documentation of the medicinal benefits of cannabis and terpenes. So the challenge for doctors right now is really to find what's useful and what's reliable in that material that's been published, you know, from clinical studies from dozens of countries, written, you know, all around the world. But as Dan mentioned, doctors don't learn about endocannabinoid system in medical school, and they're largely uncomfortable referencing anything that's not, you know, take 2 and call me in the morning. You know, the idea of smoking a joint, you know, how big of a joint, and how big is the puff? And how big is, you know, and how long do you hold it in for? And what specific strain? It's just, it makes physicians very, very uncomfortable. And so if we want to help to get them out of this bubble and really engage a much larger percentage of the population in cannabis therapeutics, we're going to need more research, and more specifically, the type of research that American Western doctors like. Not always presented by people like me, but presented by people like Dan. People that speak the language of pharma. And so, you know, we have been focused on this. We are developing a brand specifically built to respond to this need, with the hope that this is going to expand access to cannabis. We're focused on chronic pain, which we know works. We know cannabis works. We're not trying to prove it works. We know it works, but we're trying to come up with clinical-based evidence that show that it works. We recognize that that cannabis, you know, telling doctors don't want to tell you to smoke or vape, but they're familiar with something like a capsule. That's something that they're, you know, take pills. We're all familiar with taking pills, so we put it in a pill, And we're developing a dosing and titration schedule, an easy dose schedule starting at 2.5 milligrams, and then having patients escalate and then back off when they start to feel high, because being high, especially to Western doctors, is a side effect, and for some, an uncomfortable side effect. Our study went through is IRB approved, which is Institutional Review Board, which is again what the kind of gold standard of Western medicine. It had to go through intense scrutiny, that it's never really been done before for a specific brand, at least not to this extent. So we really wanted to launch this as a pharma brand, to take the evidence, to build a brand around that evidence, and then get doctors to buy into it, and then to have the dispensary be a pharmacy. It doesn't have to look like weed. It looks and feels not like weed, but it looks like medicine in their minds. So that's what we're doing. We developed a proprietary formulation that really what is on the label is what's in the bottle, and that has a batch to batch consistency wherever you get it, whether that's in Southern California, that's in Massachusetts, or in Michigan. It's always going to be the same formulation, a simple capsule that's easy to dose, easy to titrate, and available at a dispensary near you. And available for a price that's affordable. GW Pharmaceuticals launched a pharmaceutical CBD product. They charge $13,000 a year for it. We're charging $15 a bottle. My last thing before we open up to conversation is NORML is about activism. We need your help, not because we're trying to prove that cannabis works. We know that cannabis works, but we need your help because we need to convince doctors. That's how we're going to get cannabis accessible to every American, to more people throughout the world, and to destigmatize it, to normalize it, and to give this amazing plant, to give people relief from this amazing plant, more people who deserve that relief, who deserve not to suffer. And so to do that, we are looking for your help to find folks who are willing to participate in this trial. Dan can tell you a little bit more about the details of what that looks like, but we have not found enough people. We are still looking for them, and we need your networks. And we hope we can teach you more about that, what that looks like today. Sorry, Dan, I probably went a few minutes over, but for a rabbi, that's actually, just a few minutes is pretty good.
All good. By the way, I just wrote the link of the questionnaire, the screening questionnaire, on the comments page. So you're welcome to check it out and share it with your friends.
Yeah, and I also have a picture of what Cannaseutical looks like, so you can get a sense of it. I can share to. Do you guys see that? So that looks like a pharmacy brand, and that's what we're aiming for. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any ideas about how we can help engage the cannabis community in this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think this is amazing. Thank you so much, for doing this for the cannabis community, to help patients, and all this is just really great. We actually have worked with NiaMedic in the past. Your head nurse, Ingrid, Inbal in the woods. Yeah. And so we did a presentation with her with seniors, and so we really love NiaMedic and what you guys are doing. So yeah, we're very, very happy to help you guys. So I have a couple questions. So is this nationwide? Do you have places where people can get this medicine in other states that we can connect you guys with, or is this only California?
Currently, the trial is being held in California, okay, but I will let Rabbi James Kahn answer where will you be able to find this medicine in the near future, right?
In the near future, I'm not sure where we're launching it first beyond California, but Holistic Industries is located currently in 8 states. We're in Massachusetts, we're in Maryland, where I'm located, we're in Pennsylvania, we're in DC, we're in Michigan, Missouri, and soon West Virginia, and a number of other states too. So we're going to be bringing Cannaseutica throughout the entire country.
Great, perfect.
And then right now, in order to be part of the study, though, the products are being sold through Cannabis Works, and in Santa Ana. And so they have the product there that you want to explain a little bit how like the people involved in the study get the product?
Yeah, once you're enrolled to the study and you're confirmed, you basically go to the dispensary. Currently, the only dispensary who are selling this product, as you mentioned, is Cannabis Works. And one of the biggest benefits of this trial is that this product is heavily subsidized. So you're paying only $5 for a box of, not sure, I think 20 pills, if I'm not mistaken, maybe less. But a full box for $5. It's a great bargain.
Capsules.
40 capsules. Okay. But yeah, you have to be enrolled first before you purchase it in this special price.
I don't, because I'm going to talk to this to a couple people about this, because I think this is really great. If they're doing this study, can they only use your guys' product, or can they use their other treatment regimens and add this on top? Like, how does the trial go?
Yeah, so a few things to notice. First, if they are currently using cannabis or medical cannabis, then they will need to have a 14 days washout period where they basically restart their receptors, if you will, just to make sure that they start from ground zero rather than with a very high tolerance. So this is something to notice. And then yes, during those 14 days, you can use other medications or alternatives. But during the trial, you can use only cannabis, only medical cannabis, because we want to make sure that, the effects that you're getting are only from the medicine and not from anything else.
That makes sense. And do you guys have a recommended regimen, like how much you want them to take? Does it like go up, like kind of build up and tear back down?
Sure, we definitely have a very unique protocol. One for light users and one for more quote unquote heavy users, because both of the products are relatively low dose. One has 2.5 milligrams of THC. That's the light product, and the more potent product has 7.5 milligrams of THC in each pill, which is still a relatively low amount of THCs. Something to add is that other than THC, it also contains CBD, as well as CBC and CBG, other minor cannabinoids that rarely you can see in other cannabis products in the market. So this is something to notice.
Great. And how long is this trial expected to run?
A little bit over a year. Each prospect will take between 14 to 16 weeks. And just so you know, and if you share it with other people, that we only require 2 in-person meetings throughout this period. So only the third meeting and the last meetings are in person. The rest are over the phone. So it's relatively easy for the prospects to be part of this trial.
And I would assume, do you have like the in-person meetings like in Santa Ana, since that's where they're going anyways for the medication?
Sure. All prospect has to be 15 miles in proximity or less to UCI Health and Cannabis Works as well. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
That sounds amazing.
Just a few other things to point out. Just you have to be over 21.
Sure.
You need to be suffering from chronic pain for at least, which is defined by at least 3 months or more. And you need to have tried at least 2 different treatments. They can be over-the-counter products or prescription meds, but still are experiencing pain or some sort of intolerable side effect from those treatments. And lastly, the study is not open to people with fibromyalgia or cancer-related pain, not because we have anything against them, but because we know that that sort of pain requires heavier doses of cannabis. And we're really looking at this as a low-dose treatment.
Right.
I also want to add that when they get their first purchase, it does come with a dosage guide. So it will tell you how to find your great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, there's the dosage guide on how to titrate and find your dose. And then
I got a question when you're done.
Oh no, go ahead, Manny.
Yeah. Okay. So you said that these pills are you had said they contains CBG, CBC, THC, and CBD. Does it did you also say it contains terpenes?
It does. Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
u-
Does
unique
it break
terpene
it down
formulation.
on the bottle? On like what kind of terpenes it holds?
It does break it down. I don't think it breaks down the percentage of each terpene, but it does break down the major terpenes that are being used. I can see from here, myrcene, limonene, linalool, and I
Caryophyllene,
can see the last one.
linalool.
Yes. Thank you.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah, you
yeah, I see them.
Yep. Yep. We have this is a full spectrum product that we recognize that the entourage effect is critical in pain management, and that we
100%.
truly believe that if you just take CBD by itself, while it might help with anti-inflammatory issues, or it might have some anti-inflammatory properties, it really is not enough for most people to have any effect on long-term chronic pain.
Right.
And so we recognize we really need a full spectrum extract,
Right.
and we've put together a blend that we believe is just right. And we have a team
Of course. No, I
PhDs.
completely agree with you. I always say when I was selling cannabis at dispensaries, I would always say you cannot go without a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without just peanut butter. Like you need the jelly.
Exactly.
You need the jelly.
Exactly. You need the jelly.
It's the best way to put it.
That's a great way to put it.
Sure.
Yeah, and this looks friendly to your average American.
Oh yeah,
we
for
hope
sure.
beyond that. I mean, and while some of us are open to cannabis and have been open to cannabis for a long time, I know for myself with my family, my grandfather had MS, and he was willing to try just about anything before he was willing to try cannabis, including at one point injecting snake venom to try to treat his MS, which was not effective.
Man.
Snake venom.
That's a bold move.
During the 70s, they were that desperate for something, and how striking.
If Trump drinks chlorine, everything is possible, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go, Dan. Yeah.
I think that this would be great for us to put in our next newsletter, a link and some information. So I think we have everything that we need, but if not, I'll reach out to you guys. But I really want to put this in next month so that people that weren't able to attend this meeting, that don't know one of us that are going to tell us about it, the program, that we can get more people enrolled. This sounds amazing. I have one question about NiaMedic, but before we move away from the research study, does anybody have any questions about that?
I have a specific question. So I have a disorder that's attached to my autoimmune. It's like an autoimmune disease. It's called neurofibromatosis. A lot of people say that it's similar to fibromyalgia just because of the fibrous tumors and the pain that happens all throughout the body. Besides fibromyalgia just being the diagnosis of the disease that this wouldn't be the best fit for, are there any symptoms that we can describe to people that may be interested that it just might not be the best fit because their symptoms are maybe too extreme? Or is there a baseline that you're looking for the perfect applicant?
So first and foremost, you can look at the questionnaire. I think that's the best way to assess whether you're a good fit for the trial. But to answer your question, yes, there are a few things to notice. I think Rabbi James Kahn just mentioned fibromyalgia and cancer. So other than that, psychosis in first degree is something that might be a problem. Schizophrenia, like any schizophrenia or psychiatric condition, could be problematic. History of addiction, not to cigarettes, but mainly for opioids or otherwise hard drugs, could be an issue. But I would say those are the main ones. Another thing to consider is the location, the geographic location, because they need to be based, as I mentioned, relatively close to UCI. So if they live in LA or Malibu or the Valley, it will be too far away for them to get to UCI or otherwise get the medicine.
And is there someone specific that Jackie could speak to regarding the specific diagnosis she mentioned that's connected to fibromyalgia, but not fibromyalgia?
Neurofibromatosis. Are you familiar with that?
I am not personally
Yeah,
familiar with
not
it.
many
So-
people are. Yeah.
Just to clarify, we're not doctors nor nurses, but our clinical team, our clinician, our medical assistant can definitely assess your condition
Perfect.
or any prospect's condition and let you know if
If it's a good fit.
exactly.
Yeah,
Well, we're
awesome.
not
Yeah.
doctors. We're working with doctors.
I know, and I love it. I love what you guys do. And when I was managing my own store, I recommended Tikkun Olam to many people suffering from a multitude of different symptoms and disorders. So I know that it can benefit many people. I've always been interested in myself joining research programs just because I've ran the gamut with opioids myself, and cannabis is my medicine. But I'm always looking for other types. And if I can find a favorite brand, sticking with one is always great. I do have a friend that also, unrelated to my disorder, has severe scoliosis and has had multiple back surgeries, but she lives in San Diego. She is without a doubt a cannabis patient number one, because everything else doesn't really work for her the best that cannabis does, without having a lot of the side effects as all the other opioids that they will prescribe to her. But if she's in San Diego and she can travel those 3 times, would she still be a good fit for this study?
If she's willing to travel, or otherwise she has family in Orange County, we can make it work. Yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely going to recommend it to her. Okay,
Okay.
wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Of course.
I got one question. So,
Please.
have you guys ever, throughout your guys' time of getting these trials, have you ever heard of a good combination that's been like the perfect go-to, like a combination of terpenes and cannabinoids? Like, let's say, for example, like limonene is always working better with CBC, and it helps relieve, like, let's say it helps relieve pain or inflammation. Let's say that those two, combining those two products together, it just happens to be the best result. Have you guys ever come across anything like that?
Yes,
know-
indeed. And that's what we think we have with Cannaseutica. I mean, it's really based on nearly a decade of experience in the cannabis industry. It's one of the things that brought me to want to work with Holistic was that one of the first 10 people to be hired was a PhD. It wasn't the first PhD. We actually have 30 different scientists working at this company.
Wow.
We believe in cannabis with evidence. We're not just making general wellness claims. We really believe that cannabis can be backed up with evidence. And so we've put together this proprietary formulation, full spectrum, with terpenes, with different cannabinoids, and this trial is really our attempt to prove that we have come up with that formulation, at least for chronic pain for these folks.
Right. I completely understand.
And
that.
just to add on top, yeah, this is specific for chronic pains. There are many indications. I think we're talking now up to 184 indications where cannabis can be helpful to some extent. It's also, important to keep in mind that everyone reacts differently to cannabis. So one thing that might work great for me might not work as good for you. Not to say that there is some sort of majority that we as humans or mammals carry this endocannabinoid receptors. So it is similar from one to another, yet different. So it's something to consider. And again, when you try a cannabis product, only your body knows how good is it for it, and whether it's effective for your pain, for your lack of sleep, for your other medical condition. But it does require trial and errors, or otherwise research and more data to understand what's working with what.
It's similar to how we all know people who use so-called sativa strains and to go to bed, or people who try Benadryl and that find it very it's like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But every aspect of our formulation is backed by a wealth of scientific research. And it really is our best bet at what works for the general population. But we realize we're going to start slow and titrate up. One of the biggest mistakes I think people come when to treating pain from the research is that they take too large of a dose of cannabis.
True.
And cannabis can make you quite sensitive to, it's one of the reasons people love cannabis in food and cannabis in intimacy and cannabis in music, is that your senses can become ultra sensitive to the world around you. Enhanced, thank you. But when it comes to pain, you don't want enhanced senses. You want the pain to kind of float into the back of your perception so that you can live your life and not just be in pain. So for that purpose, low doses of cannabis are largely found to be much more effective. And so we're starting with really a microdose of 2.5 milligrams and then moving up.
How many people are you guys looking for in the study? Is it going to be like a 500 patient study or
107?
107?
This first round based in this area of Northern Cal, sorry.
We're Southern California.
Southern California.
You are Southern Cal.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a guy in Rock.
No worries.
The West Coast is just like the second promised land to me.
We're so appreciative of you for joining us so late in the day. And for Dan, I've seen your work for the past couple of years in the community. Is there any last questions before we let our speakers go? No? Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this presentation. I think that we all, like, our minds are like, we have a couple people that we know would be great for this. And like I said, I definitely want to put this into our next Orange County newsletter to get the word out. And I would love to maybe have you guys come on like at the end of the study and kind of like let us know about the results, and like if there's another phase, like in a different state. There's normal chapters all throughout the country. So I know that when you open trials in other states, we can help link you up there too.
It would be an honor. I'm sure Dan agrees. You know, we don't often think of participating in a research study as activism, but in this case, it is. It really is. So thank you guys.
Thank you again. And as I mentioned, or I didn't mention, I will mention that we will have some information to share in our midterm analysis, likely around January or February next year. So stay tuned.
Great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay on, but I know it's late in the day for you guys. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Thank you.
Be well, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.